used to think my home was my sanctuary, the one place where I could breathe after endless nights at the hospital. The scent of antiseptic would follow me in, a quiet reminder of the lives I'd touched. But lately, when I walk through the door, things don't feel right. The throw pillows are never exactly where I left them, like someone else has been here. And that bottle of my favorite wine, half gone, it feels like a taunt. I keep telling myself it's nothing, that I'm imagining it all, but deep down, I know I'm not. The next day, I can't stop thinking about it, about how every little thing seems to whisper that something's off. I keep replaying every conversation I've had with David, searching for the moment when things changed. Maybe it's just me, I tell myself. I've been tired, working so hard to keep everything in balance, and maybe I'm just overthinking. But my gut has never failed me before. It's what gets me through the worst nights at the hospital, and now it's telling me there's something here I can't ignore. Lying in bed at night, I stare at the ceiling while David says he's working late at the office. My mind won't stop racing. I keep thinking about the little details, the perfume I don't recognize, the way his shirt smells different sometimes. I don't want to believe he'd hurt me. He was supposed to be my safe place, the one person who'd always have my back. But lately, his secrets feel like they're closing in, and I don't know how much longer I can pretend I don't see it. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being paranoid. I've seen what stress can do to people, the way exhaustion warps reality, makes you question everything. But this doesn't feel like that. I notice the smallest changes in the air, like an unfamiliar perfume that clings to the couch cushions. It's sweet and heavy, nothing like the scent of my hospital scrubs. I feel like a detective in my own home, piecing together a puzzle I never wanted to see. My heart thuds every time I think I'm imagining it all. But then I find another clue. At work, I'm the calm one, the nurse who never panics. I've seen enough heartbreak to know how to steady my hands, even when my heart's breaking. But at home, that calm slips away. I catch myself lingering by the doorway, scanning for anything out of place. I even sniff the air for that perfume, wondering how long it's been here. My friends would tell me to ask him, to confront him head-on. But I'm not ready to hear him lie to my face. Not yet. I tell myself that maybe it's just a bad dream, that I'll wake up tomorrow and things will be normal again. But when I look in the mirror, I see the truth in my own eyes. The dark circles, the way my shoulders tense up every time I hear his key in the door. I'm tired of feeling like a stranger in my own life. I used to save lives every night at work, but here, in my own home, I feel like I'm the one drowning. Every time I see David, I want to believe the smile he gives me is real. I want to believe that when he says he loves me, he means it with every breath in his body. But there's a cold edge in his eyes now, something I never noticed before. Maybe it was always there, and I was just too busy saving everyone else to see it. It makes me question if I've been living in a beautiful lie, one he crafted so carefully I never saw the cracks until now. I keep telling myself that I deserve answers, that I've given everything to this marriage, and I'm done pretending. But there's a part of me that still hopes I'm wrong, that it's all in my head. I don't want to be the woman who was betrayed. I want to be the woman he chose, every day, without question. But the more I look around this house, the more I feel like I'm just another patient in his life, one he's grown tired of caring for. Tonight, I'm not going to sleep. My mind is wide awake, weaving every clue together into something I can't ignore. He was supposed to be my safe place, but his secrets are closing in around me. And tomorrow, I'll have to decide if I'm brave enough to find out the truth, or if I'll keep living in the dark. I always had a bad feeling about Claire. She lived right next door, always too friendly, always finding some reason to wave me down or ask for something. At first, I thought I was being petty. Who wants to be the neighbor who can't stand the woman next door? But every time she smiled, it never reached her eyes. There was something there, something in the way she lingered in our yard, that set my teeth on edge. David always said I was imagining things. Claire's just lonely, he'd say, like it was my job to fix her emptiness. But I knew better. The way she looked at him, the way she brushed her hand against his arm when she thought I wasn't watching, it made my skin crawl. I kept telling myself that I was overreacting, that I was seeing shadows where there were none. But deep down, I knew better. I've always trusted my gut, and it's never steered me wrong. One night, I came home early. I don't even remember why. Maybe I was just too tired to stay at work. or maybe I needed to see for myself. And there she was, Claire, slipping out of our yard like she owned it. She was adjusting her clothes, a smirk playing on her lips when she saw me. My heart dropped, my mind racing to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but the words wouldn't come. When I confronted David that night, I could see it in his eyes, that flicker of guilt before he put on his best smile. "You're imagining things," he said, like I was a child with too much time on my hands. He brushed it off so easily, told me that Claire was just lonely and needed someone to talk to. But the way he said it, the calm in his voice, felt like a slap to the face. Like he was daring me to believe him, even when everything inside me was screaming that he was lying. I wanted to believe him. I wanted so badly to believe that I was wrong. That maybe Claire really was just a neighbor who needed help, not the woman who had been slipping into my home while I was out saving lives. But every word he said felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced it 100 times in the mirror. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst right there in the living room. I tried to stay calm, tried to remind myself that I was stronger than this. After he went to bed, I sat on the couch and stared at the darkness around me. The house felt different now, colder, like it was holding its breath along with me. I kept thinking about Claire's smirk, the way she didn't even bother to look ashamed. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was too loud, full of questions and half-truths I wasn't ready to face. But even as I sat there, I knew one thing. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The next morning, I went through the motions like nothing had happened. I made coffee, folded the laundry, and put on my scrubs for another shift at the hospital. But inside, I was burning. Every time I looked at David, I wondered how many times he'd lied to my face. How many nights he'd smiled and kissed me goodbye, only to open the door for her the moment I was gone. My hands were steady as I worked, but my heart was anything but. I've spent my whole life fixing people, healing their pain, patching up their wounds, making sure they could go back to the world whole. But what happens when the person you've trusted the most is the one who needs fixing? I thought about Claire's smug face, about the way she acted like she had nothing to hide, and I knew then that I couldn't keep waiting for the truth to come to me. If I wanted answers, I'd have to find them myself. That night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision. No more second-guessing, no more hoping he'd come clean. I was done being the woman who waited in the dark while someone else played house in her life. Tomorrow, I'd start putting together a plan, because if he thought I'd let this go, he didn't know me at all. The next day, I woke up with a calm I hadn't felt in weeks. There was a plan forming in my mind, a quiet certainty that felt like strength. At the hospital, I moved through my shift like I always did, focused, steady, the nurse everyone relied on. But inside, I was counting down the minutes, every beep of the heart monitor a reminder that tonight, things would change. I told David I'd picked up an extra shift to cover for a sick coworker. He didn't even hesitate. He just smiled and said, "Be safe," like nothing was wrong. Driving home, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't go to work. I parked down the street from our house, engine off, lights out. For a moment, I just sat there, watching the dark windows of the place I used to feel safe in. I thought about how many times I'd left that driveway, trusting him completely. Tonight, I was done trusting. I was done waiting for him to trip over his lies. I was going to catch him in them. I slipped inside quietly, every creak of the floorboards like a warning that this was real, that I couldn't turn back. The living room was dark, but I didn't need the lights to see what I was about to find. I pulled out my phone and opened the recorder, my hands steady even though my heart felt like it was about to break. I sat down on the couch and waited, not for him, but for the truth he thought he could keep from me. As I sat there in the dark, I thought about all the nights I'd spent helping strangers, patching up wounds, holding hands in the emergency room, listening to last words. I'd always thought that the worst kind of pain was the kind that bled, but tonight, I realized there's another kind. The pain of knowing you've been living a lie, that the person you love most doesn't love you back the same way. It was a different kind of heartbreak, but it cut just as deep. The minutes dragged by like hours. Every sound outside made me jump, a car passing, a dog barking in the distance. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. This was my chance to finally see what I'd been trying so hard to deny. I thought about Claire's smirk, about the way David used to look at me when we first met, so full of promises he was now breaking in the quietest ways. My hands were steady, my breath slow, but inside, I was already bracing for the truth I knew was coming. When I heard their laughter at the door, it felt like ice water down my spine. It wasn't just the sound of them. It was the way it felt so casual, so easy, like I was the stranger in my own home. I stayed still, phone in hand, recording every second. I didn't want there to be any doubt, not for him, not for me. I wasn't going to catch them by accident. I was going to catch them by design. I could hear them in the kitchen, their voices low and playful. I pictured them pouring my wine, laughing like they had all the time in the world. Part of me wanted to scream, to burst in and demand answers right then and there. But I didn't. I forced myself to wait, to listen, to let every second of their betrayal sink in. Because I wasn't just confronting them tonight, I was gathering the evidence I needed to be free. The house felt so small in those moments, every corner filled with memories of a life I thought I was building. But now, those memories felt like paper walls, ready to crumble at the slightest touch. I thought about how many nights I'd spent wondering if I was enough for him. Tonight, I wasn't wondering anymore. I knew the truth, and it was colder than I'd ever imagined. I waited until I could hear them moving closer, their laughter turning to whispers. My heart was racing, but my hands were steady. This was my home, and I wasn't going to let them take it from me without a fight. He thought he was safe in the shadows, but I was done hiding. He didn't know it yet, but the night he thought he could get away with everything was the night I decided to take it all back. When they walked in, I didn't move a muscle. I watched them step over the threshold, caught up in their laughter, wrapped in the thrill of their secret. Claire's hand was still resting on David's arm when he froze, his eyes wide, his smile dying in an instant when he saw me sitting there. For a second, there was nothing but silence, like the whole house was holding its breath with me. And then I flipped on the light. I could see every flicker of guilt on David's face, every flash of fear on Claire's. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just sat there, calm and steady, and let them feel the weight of my silence. "Hope you both had fun," I said, my voice low and even. I called out of work tonight, just to see this show. I watched them squirm, watched the reality of what they'd done sink in. It was almost poetic, the way their laughter died in their throats. Claire stammered, her face flushed, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. David looked like he wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. My phone was in my hand, recording every second, every shift in their faces. I wasn't doing this for them, I was doing it for me. For the woman who had given everything, only to be left with nothing but half-truths and betrayal. I didn't give them a chance to spin their stories. David tried. He always thought he was so smooth, so good at talking his way out of anything. But tonight, I wasn't listening to his words. I was watching the way he shifted on his feet, the way he avoided looking me in the eye. Claire looked like she wanted to sink into the floor, her smile gone, replaced by a panic she couldn't hide. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. My voice was calm, but inside, I was on fire. I told them both that I'd seen enough, that I didn't need their excuses, their pretty lies, or their apologies. I was done. I could see the shock in David's eyes, like he'd never thought I'd be the one to stand up and say it out loud. He'd gotten used to me putting others first, my patients, my family, even him. But tonight, I was choosing myself. I stood up slowly, phone still recording, and I felt something shift inside me. It was like all the pieces of my heart that had been shattered were finally fitting back together. I looked at David and said, "You can both leave now." My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I'd spent my life helping other people heal, and tonight, I was starting with me. I didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't beg for explanations I already knew wouldn't come. I just watched as they stumbled to gather their things, their eyes darting around like they were seeing this house for the first time. Claire tried to apologize, her voice thin and trembling, but I didn't want her words. I didn't want her guilt or her shame. I wanted her gone. David looked at me one last time, like he was trying to find the woman who used to wait for him to come home. But she was gone. The woman who believed his promises, the woman who turned a blind eye to every late night, every unexplained moment. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had finally stopped trying to fix what was never hers to fix in the first place. As they walked out the door, I felt a strange kind of calm settle over me. The weight I'd been carrying for so long seemed to lift, replaced by something lighter. something closer to freedom. The night I used to spend healing others had become the night I finally started to heal myself. And as I closed the door behind them, I knew I was ready to face whatever came next. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window, a warmth I hadn't felt in what felt like forever. I didn't rush to the hospital, didn't force myself into autopilot. Instead, I sat with my coffee in the quiet of my kitchen, letting the peace wash over me. The house was still. No secrets lurking in the corners, no laughter that didn't belong to me. It felt like mine again, like I was taking back every piece of my life he'd stolen. I spent the day packing my things, each box a small rebellion against the life I'd been told to settle for. I folded my scrubs with care, stacked my books in neat rows, and left behind everything that didn't feel like it was mine anymore. David didn't try to stop me. He didn't even call. Maybe he knew there was no point, that the woman he'd been lying to was gone for good. Maybe he just didn't care. Either way, it didn't matter. With every box I carried to the car, I felt lighter, like I was finally breathing again, after holding my breath for so long. I thought about the patients I'd cared for, the way I'd always told them that healing starts with choosing yourself. It was time to take my own advice. The woman who had spent her life patching up wounds was done waiting for someone else to do the same for her. When I filed for divorce, I didn't feel the fear I thought I would. There was no second guessing, no voice in my head telling me to hold on a little longer. Just a calm certainty that this was the only way forward. I watched the papers slide across the desk, my signature in black ink, and felt a small smile tug at the corner of my lips. It wasn't just an end, it was a beginning. One I'd been too scared to see before. I cut ties with Claire, too. There were no angry words, no final showdown. Just a quiet goodbye, a final closing of the door. I wasn't interested in her reasons or her regrets. She wasn't my problem anymore. I thought about how long I'd let her hover on the edges of my life, and I realized that letting her go was the last piece I needed to move on. There's a freedom in not needing answers from people who never gave you the truth. Back at the hospital, I felt like myself again. I was surrounded by people who needed me, people who valued what I gave. In the hum of the machines and the steady rhythm of life and death, I found my own heartbeat again. I was still the woman who saved lives, but now I was also the woman who saved her own. There was something almost poetic in the way my life fell back into place. Every day felt a little lighter, every breath a little deeper. I no longer waited for the sound of keys in the door or the excuses that came too late. My life was mine again, and it was enough. I didn't need to be the perfect wife, the woman who looked the other way, the one who kept everything together for everyone else. I just needed to be me. I kept thinking about the way he used to look at me, how he thought he could break me and I'd still stay. But he was wrong. I was done living in the shadows of someone else's choices. He thought I'd never see it coming, that I'd always be too busy saving everyone else to save myself. But I'd seen it, and I'd walked away. As I stood in the hospital that final night, watching the world around me breathe and heal, I realized I'd found something he could never take away. My strength, my purpose, my freedom. He thought he'd left me with nothing, but in the end, he showed me just how much I had to fight for. And he'd never forget what he lost.